Hey guys, not really sure if you can hear me. I've got a new audio set up. So you guys that are in the chat, can you hear me at all? I mean, of course I can hear myself, but I don't know if this is actually working where you guys can hear me. So just Afro, old curly jaws, if you're there in the chat, just say yay or no, yay or nay, whether you can hear me. So, oh, Curly Jaws, you say great, damn good. So I'm guessing you can hear me, which is awesome. Uh, the problem is to be able to actually monitor whether the sound is coming out or not. I have to have earbuds in, and generally I don't like to do that unless I'm on somebody else's podcast, and, mm, looks like something was on my hat. Sorry about that, guys. Not sure what that is. Hope I didn't get pizza sauce on it. I was eating pizza real quick. Um, but anyway, and I think I got it in my tooth too. So I wanted to try this out and see if you could guys can actually hear the sound effects. If you can hear my voice, that's awesome. But I was gonna try just doing one of these. Oh, Curly Jaws, can you hear anything? Oh, thank you, Texas. Did y'all hear the da 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 the that kind of music? Because I hit spoof on here on my new mixer, which I also have, and I just wanted to see if you guys could hear the little sounds coming out. I'll do another one. There's applause. Um, so just let me know in the chat if you guys can hear that as well. Um, that's just for my own personal, thing that I wanted to make sure that these things were working because, like I said, I can only monitor it if I've got the earbuds in. Otherwise, you don't actually hear it. I guess when you're live on the stream. So if y'all heard the sound effects, the spoof and the applause, just let me know. Um, you can have a thumbs up or you can say, yeah, I heard it or whatever. But it sounds like you guys are hearing my voice good. This is the first XLR microphone I've used, and this is what came with the mixer. And yeah, I mean, it's kinda weird that I can't hear the effects on my end, like, I can change my voice. I can make myself evidently sound like a goddess, somebody's uncle, a kid. Um, I can also have a Donald Duck voice, and there's, like, I think there's a couple of others, and then it's got these other things that I can also mess with. But it's just gonna take me some practice. Um, looks like I lost 2 people in here. I guess because I was like, they were probably like, "What the hell? She's playing around with her sound and stuff." Um, so again, you guys can let me know if you heard the little snippets of stuff that, um I'll hit the applause one again just in case, Alright, great. See, um, like I said, I thought the thing wasn't even working because I guess I was expecting this because it is hooked up to my computer. I guess I was expecting the sound to play where I could hear it, through my speakers, but maybe they do that so there's not any feedback or anything like that. Um So thank you guys for that. I really appreciate it. Um, Yeah, Pink Panther, yeah, that's the, definitely the spoof music they've got, Pink Panther. Um, so, yep, that was funny. I needed to sound like Steve saying, "Shut up." Um, that's what I need to do is I need to get him to say, "Shut up" into the microphone, and I can change the voice. Um, Maybe change it to the Donald Duck voice. I was playing around with it earlier, and I was like I was being the duck voiced, the killer from New York Ripper. Yeah, exactly. New York Ripper too. Um, so that is the main reason I'm doing a stream tonight because I want to play with my new stuff. Steve would probably think that is absolutely crazy for me to do that. Um, he says, he says, "What do you need a new microphone for? What do you need a mixer for?" Um, and I said, "Well, I didn't necessarily need it. It's not essential to doing my streams. I just thought it would be something fun." And this is a G3 10 lamp one. Of course, all that stuff's made in China. Um, but that doesn't matter to me. But I get, whatever I can afford. Now, this wasn't one of those super expensive jobbies that cost like I seen some mixers that cost like $1,000. Technically, I can have another microphone hooked up here, but the only thing is, and evidently from what I've been reading, um, the microphones can only be hooked up to mixers if it's one of those 3.5 inch like mi- headphone kind of jacks. But like I said, this is an XLR microphone. You guys can't see it on screen right now because it's sitting to the side here. Um, but it has like a different kind of connection than I'm used to seeing on microphones. And then it has like that 3.5 inch like headphone jack where it actually plugs into the mixer, which is just a little box. It's not anything really elaborate. Um, Well, Dirk, I am feeling a little bit better, not 100%. But thank you for asking about me. I was sorry I wasn't able to be on the show with you guys, but I just woke up this morning just feeling really crappy, and I was like, I'm not gonna really add to this. I'm not really gonna add to the show much. Feeling the way I am. Um, and I really wanted to be on, and I would have been if at all possible. Um, but I'm gonna try this. Hold on just a second, because I've got to hear what it says exactly. Yeah, I know, guys. I know I'm playing. I promise I'm gonna get to the movies here, but I am gonna plug this in temporarily so I know what the setting is on.
So, guys, am I talking in the Donald Duck voice now? Do I sound like sound a little ducky now? I just wanted to try that out and see how that sounded. But they have other ones um, that you can use too.
So I think I've turned it back on the normal voice. I just wanted to know if you guys could hear that Donald Duck voice and get a laugh out of that. Um, but I actually do have, and Steve will kill me when he finds out this, because I really wanted to be able to hook this one in. This is a separate microphone that It sounds like I was loaded on helium. Yeah. This is actually a HyperX Quadcast microphone that lights up. I'm sure you've seen some people that do live streams that they've got. I think I'm not saying this is exactly the same kind as Garrett has, um, but his lights up like that, and I just thought that was a cool little thing. Um, which I might use sometimes when I'm not wanting to use the mixer. But again, Steve asked, "What are you gonna do with your original microphone?" He was like, at first he was like, "I don't need a new microphone." He said, "These microphones that we got work just fine." And then when he saw my mixer, when my mixer came in this afternoon, I actually took it back there and showed it to him. I said, "See, this isn't a really elaborate thing. It wasn't super expensive and all that." And I saved around $35. They had a coupon on Amazon for this G3 setup. And so I guess I would recommend it as long as it keeps working okay. Um, but the other one, unfortunately, it hooks up through USB. It's not an XLR. If it had been an XLR, I could have, kind of set this one that came with the mixer to the side and used it. So what I'm thinking of doing is whenever I'm not wanting to play around with the mixer, I will actually use the other one. And then I told Steve that I'd probably see if, maybe somebody wanted this microphone. Maybe I could sell it for a few bucks. I don't know. But I promise I want to get to the movies. Um I may have to step away and finish up my pizza cuz I kept like pushing this thing back and pushing it back to, originally wanted to start at 8, and then I said 8:30, then I said 9, and then I said 9:30. I was like, if I keep pushing it back, it's going to be forever. So I may have to finish up my pizza, but I am going to go ahead and try to get started here with the movies. Now, this was just an idea that I came up with at the last second again. I was like, I want to do something. I want to use my new equipment. What can I do? And so I thought, well, maybe do one on some of the scariest, or what I think are the scariest movies in my collection. Now, we've all seen shows. It seems like there's been a whole bunch of them where they count down the scariest movies or scariest movie scenes. And invariably, you always have things like The Exorcist. The Exorcist, a lot of times will end up being the number one spot when they do like scariest movies of all time. Now, I'm not saying that The Exorcist is not scary. Um, I'm just saying that as far as like scariest movies in my collection, the scariest stuff is sometimes a little bit more subtle, for me anyway, than The Exorcist. So I tried to pull a few of I think I've got 8 that I'm going to talk about tonight. I didn't want to pull too many off the shelf. And I will tell you, some of them, the whole movie is not really, really scary, but there are certain parts of the movie that are scary. And then there are some of these where the whole thing is pretty scary. And I will let you guys know um, with each one of these. Okay. And so these are in no particular order. They're just in the order of the way I pull them off my shelf. And I might like to do a excuse me. I might like to do a part 2 or possibly a part 3 on down the line. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with these. We got about 4 people in here. Um, I don't know. If Dead Pit's doing something tonight, they may be. Um, and if people have to step away and go see what they're up to, my feelings will not be hurt. So, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first one, which is Black Christmas. And I've talked about the original Black Christmas quite a bit um, in different streams, but I just wanted to bring it up again because, as I've said before, the very first time that I watched Black Christmas, I was not that impressed with it. I basically thought it was vulgar and I just didn't get it. I didn't get the allure of it, I guess. Then I waited a while and I watched it again, but this time when I watched it, it was late at night. My family had a phone then. We didn't have a landline phone for a long time out in the country. And, but we did then, or, at the time that I rewatched Black Christmas. And I kid you not, I got so wrapped up in this movie and it was so chilling, those phone calls in this, that if the phone had rang while I was watching this, I probably would have jumped out my skin. And I think actually the scariest part of Black Christmas is the phone calls. Um, they get you so amped up and they get progressively worse. When they start out, they're like really vulgar, obscene phone calls. But then as the movie moves along, they get more and more ominous, and threatening. Um, and s- you feel like literally, whoever is on the other side of the phone line that's making these calls, there's obviously something very wrong with them. And you're not sure what exactly, um, but it's pretty chilling. If let's say you were to take those phone calls out of the movie and just put them on a CD somewhere or an MP3 player or whatever, put them on your phone, and play them back. Um, and just let somebody listen to them that maybe has never even heard of Black Christmas, never seen it, and see what they would think. Because really, the other stuff is chilling too, but it's because when it gets to the point of the chase and very much the final girl is trying to get away from the killer. Um, After we've been amped up by these progressively worsening and more ominous phone calls, we're like, good Lord, what's next? And so we're so, like I said, amped up at that point as an audience that it's like, we don't know what in the hell's going to happen. And I think that Bob Clark set this up so perfectly, um, that everything builds one on top of the other. Um, and by the time you get to the end of this movie, you feel like it's still not over. It is still not over because, you know, they think within the movie that the person that Jess killed, was the killer, was the person that murdered everybody else. And, we soon find out when everybody leaves and there's a cop standing outside the sorority house and Jess is upstairs asleep. We move back up to the attic and we realize that Billy, the killer, is still there, and he's still talking up there. And then we hear the phone ringing as the credits roll. And so by that point in time, we come to the conclusion that um, that the killer is more than likely either killed Jess and then making another phone call, or he's getting ready to do so. So, a lot of movies have said like the nightmare's not over, the horror's not over. Um, but in this movie, it literally is not over. Even the credits rolling, and it doesn't mean it's over. Bob Clark doesn't let us go even at that. We don't get a pass. We don't get a get out of jail free card. And the fact that in the days before cell phones, this literally could have happened, which makes it even more chilling. Um, so that is why I picked this one as one of the scariest movies in my collection. My opinion only. You can take it for what it's worth. Um, and two guys, I didn't plan on talking too long because, like I said, I really wanted to do something. I really wanted to try out my new equipment. And this is something that I haven't really done a stream on. But I am, still feeling a little under the weather, which, speaking of that, I think I'm going to step away for 1 second because the last thing you guys need to see me do is blow my nose. So, especially with this new microphone, y'all said it sounded good. Um, I will be right back. So I hope I haven't lost everybody because I stepped away. I did get some. I don't know if you guys can see that real well. Ooh, that is frozen yogurt from Savannah's like frozen yogurt place here in Louisville. I'm gonna have to. I've had it in the freezer, so I'm gonna have to let it soften up a little bit to be able to eat it. Now they were supposed to put me some gummy bears on there, and they did not. So I was a little bit disappointed. But this is cake batter frozen yogurt, and it tastes really good. But like I said, I was disappointed that they didn't put my gummy bears on there. But it was too late to complain about it. I thought, I could complain about it, but I'm not going to. Okay. So moving on to the next movie, is The Conjuring. And I don't know how many of you people that are in here, I sound like a teacher I used to have, you people. But anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I've got a lot of drainage and stuff, and it just started affecting me all of a sudden. And I hate to be like feeling like I'm, that grosses people out when people go like that all the time. And I try not to do it, but it's like it's running down the back of my throat and stuff, and it's driving me nuts. But anyway, back to The Conjuring. A lot of people may not be fans of The Conjuring. They may not like that kind of stuff. Ghostly things might not be their cup of tea. But I actually have a couple of movies that deal with, like, I guess, ghostly entities would be the best way to describe it. But Steve and I actually went to see The Conjuring when it came out in theaters. And for this one, when I talked about Skinamarink, and no, guys, I don't have that one in my list. Um, when I talked about Skinamarink and how I thought you needed to watch it in a quiet environment, not in a movie theater, all that. With The Conjuring, I think the best way to see The Conjuring for the first time at least is to see it in a movie theater with all the surround sound and, the big sound of the theater. And because I think that's how The Conjuring works the best. And so it really worked for me and Steve, other than I had to switch seats with Steve at one point in time because there was a kid, not a real young kid, but still, we wondered why his mother or whoever he was with had chosen uh, to make that choice to bring him to this movie because he was talking the whole movie, asking a million questions, and Steve was starting to get irritated, so I said, "Here, Steve, just switch seats with me." And so then I had to hear the kid talking, but I was fortunately able to tune him out a little bit. So, um, so the experience was really, there were a lot of, I guess, what people would term jump scares in The Conjuring. But to me, they were very effective. There's some jump scares that I think that aren't too effective, and then I think, yeah, there are some that are very effective. And, I think The Conjuring really works, and I lost everybody but one person, damn. Um, you guys can still hear me, right? I'm not just like there's nothing coming out or anything, right? Um The last thing I see in the chat was where Texas said it sounded like I was low on helium, but, I don't know. I hope I have it that there's no sound coming out because 'cause I've been sitting here talking for about 30 minutes. Or maybe people aren't interested in hearing me talk about this stuff either. But Texas, Dirk, old Curly Jaws, Afro, anybody still in here with me? Um I'm gonna continue, even if, a lot of you drop out, I guess. Um, I might actually, because like I said, I did not know if Dead Pit was doing anything tonight, and so I guess I will check and see if they are. It doesn't look like Looks like Uncle Bill's doing something March 1st. Oh, okay. Yeah, they are doing the complete history of Scream Factory Year 6. So, and that started at 10 o'clock, and it is 10:03 now. Texas, you're still here? Okay, great. So I guess that means that you can still hear me. So I did not, again, I didn't mean to intrude on Dead Pit by having something when they're going to have something. It's just sometimes I forget to look before I do these. But anyway, back to The Conjuring. Because people might watch this later when the actual, the recording or stuff or whatever is on YouTube. Sorry, I'm so flighty, guys. I'm just, I think it's all part of not feeling good. Um, so I was always really interested too in the Warrens and Lorraine Warren, and that's kind of what the Conjuring focuses on, that and the family uh, that is evidently terrorized by some evil spirit in their farmhouse. Um, so there's been a lot of talk back and forth as these Conjuring movies came out, about people kind of refuting what the Warrens have said in the past, that they were invited to come to places like the house that or in the family that is portrayed in The Conjuring, um, Amityville Horror, all of that. But a lot of people have said, no, I think they even said that the Lutzes, I guess it was reported that George Lutz said that he never contacted the Warrens, that they just showed up. And that's what a lot of people have said. And I'm like, yeah, but that's really weird that multiple people would say, yeah, they just showed up. And the real family, the people that from the real family that I guess allow themselves to be interviewed, have said that, either they weren't asked, the Warrens weren't asked to show up, that they caused more trouble than they helped, and on and on and on. And I'm like, gee, that's really nice that Ed and Lorraine Warren, neither one of them now are here to defend themselves. And Steve kind of, thought I was being foolish, I guess, for saying, I've read up on a lot on the Warrens, and I said, I don't understand why all these people are coming out of the woodwork now to say, hey, either they didn't help us or we didn't ask them to come. They just showed up. Um, I mean, like, why are they doing it now? It sounds very suspicious to me now that both Ed and Lorraine have since passed, that more and more of this stuff is coming up. And now Steve believes the families that are saying, "Hey, we didn't ask them to come and do this, or they weren't here very long," and then people were getting kind of grumpy because they made movies out of it and made it look like Ed and Lorraine Warren were there for weeks, or whatever. And for me, when it comes down to it, it's just a really good scary movie. You know, no matter what happened in real life, and I'm sure things have been embellished a little bit to make it scarier. Um, because that's Hollywood's thing, right? They do that. Um, but I think that The Conjuring is scary. It has jump scares. It has some kind of subtle creepiness to it as well. things that, you looked and you didn't see anything, and then all of a sudden you see something, and it's like, "Holy crap," you know? Texas, you say, "When I showed up at their house, they weren't expecting me. Face green smiling, face green smiling, face green smiling." But, so, again, I'm not gonna, like, go deep details and talk for hours about these movies. This is just kinda a brief thing, like I said, that I wanted to do and also wanted to play around with my new equipment, as well. And, I know Steve not to keep talking about the equipment, I know Steve has a little handheld thing that he presses buttons and does all that. Um, and he can actually hear it without a monitoring device. But I just thought this was cool. Anyway, um, that's The Conjuring. I would recommend it, giving it a watch. Here's one of those whoop things right here, the clapping hands right there. That's another one of those kind of subtle, hey, did I see that or did I not see that? But um I just feel like this one is a worthy entry into horror movies. Um, I think James Wan did an excellent job. Of course, this says from the director of Saw and Insidious, and based on the true case files of the Warrens. So, again, I would recommend The Conjuring if you're at all interested in like the spooky side of like ghosts and other entities and all of that. I think you will enjoy it. So that's a Conjuring. The next one, okay, this is one of those that the whole movie is not terrifying. I'm going to be totally honest because if I didn't preface this by telling you that the whole movie is not terrifying, you would be like, "Holy crap, Dana's flipped her lid showing us this movie." And that is Evil Laugh. And I've talked about Evil Laugh before. I believe I did a watch along for it. Um, so the part that, again, the whole movie is not terrifying. It's not like these other two movies I talked about. But the part where the kids or the college students find the cassette tape in the fireplace as they're cleaning up this place that they want to reopen as an orphanage. Texas, you say, "Oh God." Yeah, yeah, it's that movie. I'm talking about that movie. But when they find this cassette tape and they decide they're like, "Hey, what's this?" And they decide to put it in the boombox. And then they discover that their friend Jerry's car, because when they got there, Jerry was nowhere around, but his car was there. And so when they actually were just getting ready to listen to the tape to see what was on it, music or whatever, Barney comes in there and says, "Hey, Jerry's car's gone." So everybody runs outside. Then the tape starts playing because you know how cassette tapes usually had that lead in where there was some silence and then it would actually start. So once they get outside, we hear the go away in this really creepy voice. "The children are dead. The children are dead. Oh my God, Martin, why?" And I cannot do it like on the movie. And it's also flashing and showing an axe and showing bloody blankets and things like that. And previous to this, we'd already heard little grumblings of Martin and all of that. So, um, that whole sequence, albeit a short sequence, is very creepy and very effective. Now, the rest of the movie, eh, it's uneven. But that one part, um, makes my list probably of scariest scenes, in horror movies. Okay, so that one was short because I didn't talk about the whole movie. Okay, so although I really would have liked to have put Psycho on this list, I love Psycho. Psycho is classic horror, but Psycho 2, which is a near, if not perfect sequel to the original Psycho, this has more creepy scenes in it. It's almost like they gave Anthony Perkins more stuff that he could be doing, creepy wise, as the Norman Bates character. Um, for instance, near the end of the movie, when Norman is slowly been driven back crazy, um, by both Meg Tilly and Vera Miles. And Vera Miles is reprising her role as Marion Crane's sister. And she married her sister's boyfriend after they found out that Marion was dead. Sometime after that, she um, married her sister's boyfriend. And they evidently had a child together. And then when Marion's sister finds out that Norman Bates is going to be released, and she's actually in the courtroom during the proceedings, and she just can't believe it. She can't believe they're going to let this murderer go free, and she will not let it go. And so she gets her daughter, played by Meg Tilly, to agree to work with her to slowly drive Norman crazy. And Meg Tilly's character goes along with it for a little while. And her character's name is Mary. And then the mother is Lila. And so Norman has no idea that Mary is Lila's daughter. And she's just working at a restaurant where they get him a job working at the same restaurant that she works at. And evidently, Mary comes up with this tale of woe that um, she had a fight with her boyfriend and she doesn't have anywhere to stay. And Norman invites her to come to his house. And they pretty much strike up a friendship. And over time, Mary realizes that really Norman's not a threat and her mother is pushing this too much. And she finally says, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to hurt Norman anymore. Um, but then her mother's like pushing her, and she says, "You just got to dress up in the wig and the dress one more time. Just act like his mother one more time, and it will drive him over the edge." And meanwhile, Lila gets killed by Norman. Um, but Mary, against what she knows is right, um, does this, and Norman goes over the edge. And he thinks that Mary is his mother. And he's like, "Yes, mother." And she's like, "Norman." She takes off the wig. She says, "It's me, Mary. I'm not your mother." And Norman is smiling and walking towards her. "Let me take you to your room, mother." And that whole sequence is so terrifying. But Norman, or Anthony Perkins' portrayal of Norman Bates in this second one is even more um, creepy to me than the original Psycho. And I love the original Psycho. But this second movie really plays on both fears of going crazy, of losing your mind, or having to be on the receiving end of whatever somebody that is losing their mind is going to do to you in the process. So, that is why I find pretty much the whole movie of Psycho 2 creepy and scary. Okay. So, moving right along, um, is Prince of Darkness. This is a movie that me and Steve like to watch around Halloween. It just seems like that kind of movie. Halloween, fall type of movie. And so this movie has so many creepy sequences. One of being Alice Cooper as a homeless guy. Um, and the whole thing with the bugs and people like essentially losing their mind when they get affected by the evil that is encapsulated in this looks like a gigantic tube of green stuff. When that gets out and basically infects um, some some college students and some scientists and stuff like that that are trying to figure out the mystery behind this stuff. Um, when they get infected by whatever this is, this evil, um, they do pretty much slowly lose their mind. And there's one scene in particular where this one guy, gets infected, and he evidently was a religious guy, and he's singing a religious song, and he's laughing and crying kinda at the same time, and he's coming after the group of people that are still left and are normal, pretty much. Um, and that whole, like, the way John Carpenter designed Prince of Darkness, the atmosphere is creepy. What happens to the people within the movie is creepy. The fact that they can't escape from whatever this is creepy. All those religious overtones to it are creepy. Um, the John Carpenter's music is creepy. John Carpenter is a master when it comes to those themes that he does for the films that he's directed. Um, so I definitely can recommend this to anybody that has never seen it. If it's been a while since you've seen it, I say, pull that sucker back off your shelf. Um, give it another try. Um, definitely one of Carpenter's most frightening films, in my opinion. Prince of Darkness is. So anyway, Prince of Darkness, highly recommend this one. And moving right along to another one where I feel like the entire movie is maybe not really, really scary, but there are certain parts of it, and that is popcorn. Sorry for the glare. This is actually a steel book and it's in a plastic cover. But the really scary thing about popcorn is when they find the I guess like a lost film of Leonard Gates, this guy that had a film cult, and he got angry because people laughed at one of his movies, and so his answer to everybody was to make a film called Possessor. And the guy that plays Leonard Gates really, really must have worked at this because he is super, super creepy. And when these film students find this film and they start watching it, I mean, just like it shows a close up of Leonard Gates, and he's like, I am the possessed, the possessed, the possessed. And then blood comes out of his mouth. And he says things like, come inside my head, and peels the skin back on the head, and you actually see a skull and all that. Um, but just that whole sequence is to me very, very creepy, very effective. I mean, I love the entire movie, but as I told you, there were going to be at least a couple of these where the whole movie wasn't just drop dead terrifying, but there are certain scenes that kind of give you pause, give you chills, whatever. And for me, the possessor sequence was one of those. Um, but again, I love all of popcorn. I love that the film students are having a horror movie marathon. I mean, that is definitely something I would be all for doing. Um, I like the music in it. I like the short films that were created to use in the marathon, um, and all of that. So that is popcorn. And now the next one is only PG, guys, but this movie has always been effective for me. It's always gave me cold chills, and it has several sequences that really give me cold chills, and that's Poltergeist. And so just, you know, the clown doll that gets possessed and attacks the little boy. Um, Carol Ann at the beginning standing in front of the TV that is off station and talking to the TV and telling her she does that whole thing, "They're here," and when the mother asks her later, you know, "Who are you talking about when you said they're here? Who are you talking about?" And she's like, "The TV people," you know. And we find out that the white noise, um, anybody that's done any research into paranormal activity and stuff like that, and I don't mean the movie, I just mean paranormal activity, um, that you realize that white noise enables people to be able to hear spirits. Now, if you don't believe, that's fine. But I do believe, and so I think that's probably one of the reasons why this movie is more effective for people that believe in that kind of stuff. And so, you know, and then Carol Ann disappears inside her closet. then they can hear Carol Ann through the TV, through the white noise. Um, and even like one of the scariest parts for me, and I've talked about this before, is when the uh, paranormal scientists are at the Freeling's house trying to discover what's going on. One of the guys gets hungry in the night and decides to go get him something out of the refrigerator, and he finds, some chicken and a steak. Um, I always found it a little funny because I wondered if it was the Freelings food that he was eating, or did they bring some stuff with them? But that's kind of beside the point. So he kind of lays the steak out. Um, Maybe he was letting it get to room temperature or something, and it sprouts maggots. And he also sees maggots in the chicken leg that he's got in his mouth. And he's like spitting and drops it and all that. And then he goes in, I think it's a bathroom or a half bath or something with a sink, and he starts, splashing water up on his face. And then a light comes on, and it's almost like a microwave, like he's stuck inside of a microwave. And he's looking at his face in the mirror, and then it's like his hands come up and start peeling his face off, and the pieces of flesh are falling on the floor and all that stuff. And then he goes, huh, like that, and looks again, and his face is normal. After that, he leaves the Freeling's house, and he's not going to come back. For some reason, I found that scene really, really creepy. And I still find it creepy. I found it creepy as a kid. I still find it pretty creepy. But the whole movie itself, once things kick into high gear, basically, once Carol Ann disappears, um, things go sideways. And then from then on out in the movie, it is very, very chilling, to me. Very chilling for a PG rated film, uh, for sure. And here's something else, and I think I brought this up before. There's a little warning sticker right here, and this doesn't have anything to do with the film being creepy, but it says, "This film contains sequences of flashing lights that may affect viewers who are susceptible to photosensitive epilepsy or other photosensitivities." And I was like, I have never seen this on any copy of Poltergeist, but when the 4K came out, there it was. Um, so the last one I want to talk about tonight, and then I'm going to get off here. So I want to thank to, Texas and whoever else is in here for hanging around, even when there's probably more interesting things to be watching. Um, but the last film I wanted to talk about is When a Stranger Calls. And actually, Curly Jaws mentioned it, I believe, last night during the watch along. That he's found this movie very terrifying. And he couldn't remember the title of it, but we let him know what it was. And this copy I've got is actually one of those retro ones that it's actually a Blu-ray, but it looks like one of the VHS tapes with a VHS coming out there, and it looks like it's got the horror stickers and stuff like that on it. I mean, pretty much this is a story, with an urban legend at its core, um, because it's the story of a babysitter who, just thinks she's going to be taking care of a couple of kids for, a few hours, and then, she's going to get paid. The parents are going to come home, and then she's going to go on with the rest of her life. But after the parents leave, um, Jill, the babysitter, played by Carol Kane, who Carol Kane, she's known for a lot of comedic stuff, but in this role, she is awesome. She plays this one to the hilt. Um, Charles Durning's also in this, Colleen Dewhurst, and Tony Beckley is the guy that plays the crazy guy in this. He plays Kurt, I think is what his name is in the movie. Um, so anyway, she's just, she's sitting around kind of working on homework. She has talked to one of her friends, and she keeps expecting somebody named Bobby to call who she's got a crush on. So typical high school scenarios. But then she gets a phone call from somebody different. And all the guy will say is, "Have you checked the children yet?" Now I've lost everybody. And it's really creepy. Um, how he gets more and more insistent. He keeps calling her. She gets kind of weirded out by it and ends up calling the cops. And they tell her not. At first they tell her don't worry about it. You know, and she's like, well, he keeps calling, and he does. Um, so eventually the cops have a trace put on the phone, and like I said, the guy gets more and more insistent that's calling, and eventually he says, "Why haven't you checked the children yet?" And so after they put a trace on the phone, once she's able to keep the guy on the phone long enough, when she gets off the phone with him, the cops call her right back and they say, "Jill, the caller's in the house. Get out of the house." And then we find out later that the killer had killed the kids, or the caller had killed the kids a long time ago, probably just after the parents left. And then he started calling Jill from within the house, asking her to check the children, or have you checked the children? And so I found that just absolutely terrifying. Again, this is most effective in the days of landline phones only. I don't know if it would be as effective now with other modes of being able to communicate with outside sources. The police and stuff like that. Um, but anyway, um, what also made this terrifying is the fact that this took place it took place in a neighborhood. I mean, you don't think about that. You think about things like this happening if somebody was totally isolated, at a farmhouse, or, somewhere out in the sticks where I used to live with my parents and stuff like that. You don't really think of this necessarily happening in a neighborhood where you've got neighbors on all sides usually. Um, but in this movie it did, which made you feel like I'm not safe anywhere. You're not safe in a neighborhood. You're definitely not safe, very isolated at an old farmhouse, way out in the boonies somewhere. So you're just not safe anywhere. And that is ultimately what is so terrifying. So we have this really creepy beginning to the movie. And then it kind of switches gears because this movie started out as a short film, like a student film. And then when they wanted to make it into a feature film, of course, they had to come up with more stuff to put in it. So, hence the calling Dewhurst part of it, which a lot of people don't find nearly as interesting as the Carol Kane stuff, which I can totally see that. But I do think that the stuff with Colleen Dewhurst and her interacting with Kurt and him and being insistent that he wants to go out with her for a drink and he kind of just shows up at her apartment and comes in her apartment. She's like, you can't be here. And so once that part is over, Charles Darning's character is still looking for Kurt. He's still looking for him, and he hasn't been able to catch him yet because he evidently has escaped from the mental hospital where he was. Okay, so some other really, to me, bone chilling scenes include when Charles Durning goes to the mental hospital and they allow him to listen to a tape of Kurt when he was first brought in to the mental hospital. And he's telling them, don't touch me, don't touch me. And then he lets out this primal, animalistic scream, this like that. And I know I can't do it justice, but you would just have to watch it on the film and hear it. That is literally bone chilling to hear. The other scene that really gets to me is when Kurt is having some kind of breakdown and he's naked, he's on the floor in a bathroom, and he's flashing and seeing himself in a straitjacket. Those scenes, those flashes of that is really creepy. Um, and the ending scene. So if you haven't seen all this movie or haven't seen it at all and don't want to know how it ends, sorry guys, I'm going to step away for just a second, okay? Sammy. They would have to start doing that right when I get near the end of this. But so the final kind of chilling scene for me is when it goes back to the Carol Kane story. Carol Kane is older. She's married. She's got two kids of her own. Her husband's very successful. He's got a promotion. They're going to go out to eat to celebrate and leave the kids with a babysitter. Um, and they get a phone call while they're eating dinner. And the husband's going to get up and get up. But Jill says, no, I'll get it. It's probably just the babysitter. And she goes and she picks up the phone and she hears that same voice saying, have you checked the children? And she lets out a blood curdling scream. The husband comes running up there. She's almost pretty much on the floor. So, she's, just having a breakdown. And so they rush home. Um, and she asked the babysitter, she says, have you checked my children? And she's just like, it's so effective. Um, so no, actually she says that when she's after she's gotten a creepy phone call from Kurt. She calls the babysitter. She calls her house from the restaurant and she relays that. And the babysitter's like, yeah, they're fine. They're fine. So they still rush home. Nothing's out of place. Everything's fine with the kids. Um, the babysitter gets paid and goes home. So everybody's settling down for the night. And Jill just can't sleep naturally. So she gets up and goes to get some milk or something like that. And then she does check on her children, just and they look like they're sleeping peacefully. But she discovers that her son has like one of those sugar daddy candies in his hand. And she's like, "Who gave you the candy?" And of course the kid's half asleep, and so she's kind of weirded out by it, but maybe she thinks the babysitter gave it to him or something. And she goes back and gets in bed. And she hears some weird noises um, coming from the closet. And she thinks, oh God, it's Kurt. It's him. And she goes to shake her husband awake, and it's not her husband. Kurt is in bed with her. Her husband's been kind knocked out or something. That's him groaning from the closet. And Kurt raises up and he's like this. And again, I can't do it like he did in the movie. It's much more effective in the movie, really, than me telling you it. And so thankfully, Charles Durning shows up, kills Kurt. He shoots him and kills him. And is comforting Jill at the end of the movie. But I will say, out of all of them that I've talked about tonight, this one really should go at the top of the list. And if not the top, near the top, definitely. I'm going to say it probably needs to be at the top for me as far as the movies I talked about tonight. I would recommend this movie to anybody that likes to watch these really chilling movies and really effective horror movies. When a Stranger Calls does that in spades. So, uh, I'm probably going to have to get off of here really quickly because Brandon's starting to bark and I don't want him to wake Steve up. If you guys don't want to hear him scream, shut up, which you probably would. Uh, yeah, Texas, have you checked the chicken? I wish I had a little chicken sound on my mixer, but I don't. Um, but anyway, uh, I want to thank those of you that were in here, despite Dead Pit doing something and probably a bunch of other people doing things tonight. Um, I'm gonna get off of here and tend to my dogs. So I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now.